2014, Mercedes cracked the code before everyone else even realized there was a code to crack. And they've done the exact same thing in 2026. Cause we are 3 races into the new Formula 1 season, and a 19-year-old Italian kid who crashed his company car into a guardrail 2 weeks before the season started has already won 2 Grand Prix, leads the World Championship, and has the F1 giants, Red Bull, McLaren, and Ferrari shaking in their boots. You need to understand F1 2014 to understand what is happening right now. And that's not a subtle connection either. It's practically the same film with different actors. Back in 2013, F1 ran on V8 engines. Then the FIA decided to completely blow up the formula. A V6 paired with 2 energy recovery systems, basically Mercedes put their car on the same diet as Charles Leclerc, keeping both of them fast and sexy. But also had more power than Lance Stroll smashing through barriers that could then be deployed as extra horsepower down the straights. As always, every team had to build one from scratch. Ferrari built one, Renault built one, Honda was coming, but Mercedes had been quietly engineering theirs since around 2011. They had a little trick up their sleeve that nobody spotted until it was too late. Nobody had made their engine in the same way. They cleaned up the aero and gave them somewhere between 50 and 100 more horsepower than everyone else, which in F1 terms is basically showing up to a street fight with a rocket launcher. So much so, they already knew how good it was before Australia. Andy Cowell, the man who built the engine, has talked about watching Bahrain 2014. Hamilton and Rosberg dueling for the lead, team screaming at them to turn the engine down, and I'm pretty sure his thought process in that moment was basically just don't let anyone find out how much we have in the reserve. Mercedes were sandbagging. In race 1, they built 3 full power units while rivals were still figuring out how to make their starts reliably. This resulted in the most dominant season in modern Formula 1 history. They showed up to Australia with a car so far ahead of everyone else that Rosberg won the opening race by 24 seconds. To put that in perspective, Ricciardo finished second and was later disqualified. And nobody even noticed because the gap was so embarrassing it barely mattered who was behind. The real story of 2014 wasn't Mercedes versus the field. It was Mercedes versus Mercedes. Hamilton and Rosberg had been teammates since 2013, friends since childhood karting days. The car was so dominant that the only person who could actually beat Lewis Hamilton was the man in the other silver arrow. You could almost feel the tension between them, kind of like the relationship Lance Stroll has with crashing into walls or other times Alonso. But Bahrain was where it properly went up in flames. Under the floodlights in the desert, the two of them went at it for 57 laps, lead changing hands multiple times, Rosberg diving up the inside, Hamilton cutting back. The next race in Canada was a blip. Both Mercedes cars lost their electric motor almost simultaneously, which for a Mercedes in 2014 was basically losing a superpower mid-fight. Hamilton retired, Rosberg limped home with low power and somehow still nearly won. Daniel Ricciardo, who had been patiently waiting for exactly this moment all season, nipped past in the closing laps to take his first ever F1 victory. It remains one of the most joyful moments of that era purely because it was so unexpected. The championship swung back and forth all season. Rosberg kissed Hamilton deliberately at Spa.
Nico hit me. Nico hit me. That's not cool, guys.
Hamilton started from the pit lane in Hungary and carved through the entire field. Belgium, Germany, Singapore, it went race by race, point by point, right to the finale in Abu Dhabi where Rosberg needed second place to win the title. But his engine wasn't going to allow that to happen, and Hamilton won the race and the championship. 11 wins to Rosberg's 5. The only non-Mercedes race winner all season was Ricciardo, and the only reason he ever had a sniff of that position was because something broke on the silver cars. Mercedes took 11 1-2 finishes, 18 pole positions from 19 races. Hamilton won his second world championship, Mercedes won their first constructors, and then they just kept going. 7 drivers' titles, 8 consecutive constructor championships. In 2016, they won 19 out of 21 races and took 20 out of 21 pole positions. A 95.2% pole rate across an entire season. If you were a Ferrari or Red Bull fan at any point between 2014 and 2021, you basically just tuned in every weekend to watch the trophy presentation. It ran so long that by the time Red Bull finally beat them in 2021, people had forgotten what competitive Formula 1 looked like. Now, here is 2026, and the word from every corner of the paddock is that Mercedes has done it again. For 2026, the FIA decided to blow everything up again, as in their tradition. A lot of tweaks to the engines, but basically these cars are becoming glorified Teslas that happen to go 200 miles per hour. DRS that made overtaking look easy and fake, and which absolutely no one misses, got replaced. And the cars are smaller, lighter, shorter, think less Max Verstappen in 2023, or Carlos Sainz trying to squeeze into a Williams. Red Bull, for the first time in their spoiled life, built their own power unit partnered with Ford. Honda split from Red Bull and joined Aston Martin as a works team. Audi arrived as a brand new manufacturer, and Mercedes, as in tradition, had been engineering their unit for years already and arrived at Barcelona private test in January looking very comfortable with themselves. The W17 ran more laps than any other car at that test. More reliably, more consistent, better driver feedback from both Russell and Antonelli. Mercedes ticked all their objectives according to their trackside engineering director and then opted to use their optional third day of testing, simply because the car was letting them. Meanwhile, Aston Martin's car was shaking itself apart and McLaren were dealing with transmission gremlins in FP1. Bahrain testing made the difference clearer. George Russell's long runs were comfortably clear of the field. Antonelli in the morning was similarly fast. The car was just more efficient than everything else, and they hadn't even shown full power yet. And from there, all roads led to round one of the new era, Australia 2026. Everyone said it could be anyone's race, and there was that teensy-weensy possibility of chaos. And yes, chaos happened, just not for Mercedes. Qualifying on Saturday, Q1, Q2, everything running normally. Then Q3 starts and almost immediately a red flag because Antonelli's car was released from the garage with cooling devices still attached. They fell off on the circuit, Lando Norris drove straight through one, damaged his front wing, and the session stopped. Mercedes were fined £7,500. Antonelli kept P2. And if you're wondering how Mercedes came back from that embarrassment, they didn't need to, because Russell was on pole by 0.785 seconds over the rest of the field. Ferrari, McLaren, Red Bull, all within a tenth of each other, all fighting for the scraps. Leclerc apparently saw Russell's qualifying data and thought it was wrong. Verstappen, for his part, crashed out in Q1 without setting a single time lap. His car just rotated under braking and went into the barriers. He confirmed post-session it wasn't a car error. The four-time world champion started from the back of the grid in race 1 of the new season. If you need a clearer sign that the game has reset, that's it right there. Race day. Ferrari had actually done something clever. And yes, we are surprised as you are. They designed their engine specifically for the new 2026 start procedures, basically engineering their entire car around the first 3 seconds of the race. Leclerc shot past Russell into turn 1 at the lights, Hamilton tucked in behind, and for about 10 laps, it genuinely looked like a contest. Then, it just wasn't. Russell used his hybrid deployment differently, managed his tires, and the pace gap did what pace gaps do. It grew. Final result, Russell first, Antonelli second, Leclerc third, 15 seconds back. Mercedes ran 46-lap-old hard tires at the end and still matched Ferrari's pace. Leclerc told reporters afterwards he thought Mercedes was hiding pace. He probably wasn't wrong. Oscar Piastri never even saw the race. On the formation lap, before a single racing lap at his home Grand Prix in Melbourne, he got an unexpected torque surge out of turn 4 with cold tires and no battery, and spun into the barriers. Didn't start at his home race. The McLaren garage, which was celebrating a Constructors' Championship, watched one car get collected before lights out and the other finished 5th. Lando Norris, struggling with his car, finished behind Verstappen, who had started from the back. China came 2 weeks later and hell boiled over. Sprint qualifying. Russell P1, Antonelli P2. Sprint race. Russell wins, Antonelli gets shuffled back early but recovers. Main qualifying, Antonelli planted on pole, becoming the youngest Formula 1 pole sitter in history at 19 years and 6 months. Russell behind him in second. And then third place was Lewis Hamilton in a Ferrari, which is pretty huge when you consider all he's been through. Ferrari's turbo advantage gave them a flying start again, Hamilton and Leclerc pressuring the Mercedes pair into turn 1. Antonelli took the lead back, controlled the pace, and drove away. At the end, he was 25 seconds clear of Russell, nearly 29 seconds ahead of Leclerc. After the checkered flag, Toto got on the radio to Antonelli and gave one of the most heartfelt messages in F1 history.
He's too young. We shouldn't put him in a Mercedes. Put him in a smaller team. He needs experience. Look at the mistakes he makes. Here we go, Kimi. Victory.
Thanks, Toto.
Japan, Suzuka. 3 from 3. Antonelli on pole again, Russell alongside. Both of them went backwards at the lights. Piastri launched from 3rd and grabbed the lead. Leclerc and Norris also jumping the Mercedes pair. Antonelli dropped to 6th. For 3 laps, it actually looked like the script might change. Then Russell carved through Norris on lap 3, Leclerc on lap 4, and closed on Piastri. Antonelli was coming too, methodically picking his way back through. By lap 8, Russell had Piastri and they were fighting, swapping the lead, neither able to pull clear. Then on lap 22, Ollie Behrman had a nasty crash, and as usual, a safety car came out. Russell had pitted 1 lap earlier, Antonelli hadn't, so he pitted under the safety car and emerged in the lead for free. Russell, who had been in the process of building the race-winning position, screamed unbelievable over the radio.
Safety car, safety car. Unbelievable!
And and a software glitch on his restart, battery not charging, Leclerc and Hamilton both got past him, he ended up 4th. Antonelli won by nearly 14 seconds from Piastri, with Leclerc 3rd. And you kinda understand the frustration. He's been fast enough to win both times, bad starts and bad luck have cost him points both times. 3 races in, Antonelli leads the championship. Russell is 9 points back. Both Mercedes, both on the front row every single weekend, the team that was supposed to be the story of 2026, Verstappen's Red Bull, Hamilton's Ferrari, Norris's McLaren title defense has been completely overshadowed by a teenager from Bologna. The rest of the F1 grid are really not having fun at the moment. In fact, the other guys are struggling and in positions you wouldn't expect them to be. Verstappen finished 8th in Japan. He crashed in Q1 in Australia, crashed out in Q2 in Japan, and is currently being outscored by his rookie teammate Isak Hadjar in their first 3 races together. Look, I know I gave this guy meme of the season, but he's an absolutely incredible driver. Red Bull building their own power unit with Ford for the first time in history has not gone smoothly. Verstappen has been vocal, very vocal, about hating the 2026 regulations. The man who won 19 races in 2023 is currently a midfield driver. Crazy things are happening, but we trust Max and we know what he can do. Ferrari are genuinely the closest challenger, but even that comes with asterisks. Leclerc has been on the podium in all 3 races, Hamilton took one in China, but they're down on power compared to Mercedes, and on the straights, it shows. 3/10 a lap doesn't sound like much until you multiply it across 50 laps and realize Ferrari are basically finishing the race in a different time zone. The gap between Mercedes and Ferrari is real, and it's not closing overnight. Former Ferrari chairman Luca Di Montezemolo went on Italian television and said the SF26 is not capable of winning the world championship. You know, things are a little bit serious when a former president of Ferrari delivers that assessment. McLaren, our reigning constructors champions, look a little bit lost, honestly. Oscar Piastri didn't start the first race, didn't start the second, finally got to drive a full Grand Prix in Japan and finished 2nd, which was magnificent. But the car is half a second off Mercedes in pure pace, and they're relying on Piastri's driving brilliance to paper over the performance deficit. Norris is 5th in the standings after 3 rounds. The car that dominated 2025 looks like a tractor in 2026. Andrea Stella has admitted publicly the W17 is much stronger than it may appear in cornering. The MCL40 just doesn't have what Mercedes has right now, and given that Mercedes literally supplies their engine, McLaren are in the deeply uncomfortable position of being beaten by their own landlord. As for Aston Martin, where do I even start? Lawrence Stroll spent hundreds of millions building what was supposed to be the great 2026 project. Hired Adrian Newey, the most decorated designer in sports history, 26 world championships worth of trophies on his CV as managing technical partner. Signed a works partnership with Honda as their engine supplier. The AMR26, Newey's first Aston Martin car, was described at launch as radically different. All the glamour and the most eagerly anticipated car of the new era, but the car vibrates so badly at certain frequencies that Adrian Newey, the man himself, warned before the Australian Grand Prix that both drivers faced a risk of permanent nerve damage to their hands from holding the wheel. Alonso was photographed mid-race in China literally letting go of the steering wheel on a straight because the vibrations from the Honda power unit were causing him to lose feelings in his hands and feet. He then retired from the race because of it. Neither driver finished the first 2 Grand Prix. In China qualifying, Lance Stroll told his engineer on the radio, so it's the worst piece of shit he's ever driven in his fucking life. When Alonso eventually finished a race at Suzuka, 18th place, he described it as ticking a box. This is what they've reduced my goat to, I guess. He's a 2-time world champion who came back to F1 specifically for this 2026 project. Lance Stroll has started talking about our own Aston Martin championship, meaning he and Alonso are essentially racing each other for last place because they're so far off from everyone else.
But I was having a fun race with Fernando in our own little championship, our own Aston Martin championship, so
Cadillac, a brand new team making their Formula 1 debut, occasionally threatens to beat them. Honda's engine fix isn't expected until after Monaco at the earliest. The whole thing is genuinely a circus. Actual circuses have better planning. Newey designing a bad car is already something nobody expected to type this decade. Truth is, if there are no regulatory interventions, there will be a Mercedes dominance similar to the first years of the hybrid era. The FIA are reportedly holding off any major rule changes until at least Miami, so the Silver Arrows are running free. Mercedes didn't just have a better engine in 2014, they also had a better chassis, and they kept that quiet. While everyone blamed the power unit, Mercedes were developing engines that gave them advantages that lasted years after the engine gap was partially closed. James Allison, their technical director, basically said they were quite happy they were getting the wrong end of the stick, and had no intention of correcting anyone. They let people chase the wrong thing. In 2026, Russell himself said the car is being underestimated. They've got a really great engine beneath them, and more importantly, they've also got a really amazing car beneath, and that probably hasn't been highlighted enough in the press. The same conversation 12 years later. Antonelli is leading the Formula 1 World Championship, 2 wins, 2 poles, youngest championship leader in history. Russell is 9 points back, but quick enough to be winning if things fall his way. Wolff keeps saying the dynamic is stable. 19 races remain. Ferrari are bringing a proper upgrade package to Miami. McLaren are working with Mercedes HPP to find more from the power unit, which is a deeply weird situation. The team trying to catch Mercedes is being handed the keys by Mercedes. Red Bull needs time to develop an engine they've never built before. Aston Martin needs time to build an engine that doesn't destroy people's nervous systems. And Mercedes, after 3 races, are 45 points clear of Ferrari in the constructors. Both drivers are in the top 2 of the championship, a car that Charles Leclerc initially thought had the wrong data in qualifying because the lap time was too fast to be real. They said new regulations change everything, that 2026 was anyone's championship, that the reset would create chaos and opportunity, that nobody could predict the order. All of that was true. The reset happened. Mercedes just happened to be the ones who had been reading the rulebook since 2022 and building something nobody else had quite figured out yet. Welcome back to 2014.